All right, it is Figgie and the Moose on this Wednesday right here on Pix 11 Plus. What's going on, Figgie? How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Good morning already, as you know, my early Wednesdays. I got the day show. Got a chance to meet former #1 pick overall, Mr. Greg Oden.
Oh, very nice.
Signed a basketball for me. It was a great conversation we had with him on New York Living. And, still loving what I'm seeing from New York baseball.
Yeah, and tonight's the NBA draft out there in Brooklyn. We'll get into that a little bit. I think Odin has got an event this morning or this afternoon at Del Frisco's. I think there's like a wine tasting and everything going like that. But I mean, interesting story when you think about Greg Oden, no doubt, as the draft is tonight out in Brooklyn. But you mentioned, let's begin with the baseball, Figgy. As far as, the Mets are concerned, I mean, there's real issues in Queens. There's no doubt about it. They've lost 10 of 11. They blew a 3-0 lead last night, as did the Yankees out there in Cincinnati against the Reds, end up losing that game in extra innings. Bullpen, not many arms that you can go out there and lean in on. Reed Garrett, after getting a strikeout of Acuna, gives up the 2-run single to Olsen that gives the Braves the 5-3 lead. The top three in the lineup are the only ones that are producing. There's a lot of dead wood, so to speak, when you look at that lineup on a day in, day out basis. They've got real tangible issues here. And the one thing that we talked about before, the 3-game set last week in Atlanta and then the 4 this week is don't give the Braves any kind of hope. Well, the Braves got hope because they look at this and say, well, right now we're a better baseball team than the New York Mets, and they're not wrong.
Yeah, and that's what baseball is about, right? There's going to be streaks. There's going to be, and that's why when you look at the box score at the end of the standings, it has last 10. That usually tells you which direction a team is trending in, right? When you look at the last 10 for the Mets, and it's been absolutely ugly. Is that the team that we know? Is that the team that we've seen for the majority of the season? No, absolutely not. So you hope that this trend can end soon, and it can't. For the Mets and Mets fans, it can't end soon enough. But we're not seeing reasons why it should end. You had a plus outing by Frankie Montas in his Mets debut, gives you 5 innings, shutout baseball, goes out there, punches out 5, looked like he got stronger towards the end. His stuff, like they said, the metrics on his stuff in his last outing, they kept saying was good, and we wanted to see how it would translate to the major league level. He looked like he was in command of his stuff for the most part, had the 3 walks, but 5 strikeouts. Gave you everything you'd want in that first outing out, right? 5 innings. And then you go with Brazoban, who had been one of the guys that you could count on. He had 10 holds throughout the season, and you figure this is a guy that's just going to be able to give you at least a 6th and 7th inning. And it wasn't the case to be. Walks have been the plague of this Mets team. 9 walks again last night. Continue to put free runners on base. And it doesn't matter who the team is. It's a major league team. They're going to run into some stuff. And then the more people that are on base, the more opportunity you have to drive in runs. And the Braves are taking advantage of that. A 5-run inning on the Mets. We keep seeing that throughout this losing streak. There's a 1 inning that does them in every single time. And so the amount, it feels like the amount of perfection that you have to have from all whoever's pitching all 9 innings, it's astronomical. And that's what I feel like they're playing as. They're playing as a team that's trying not to lose instead of a team that's trying to win. You had a 3-0 lead, seemed like you were in cruise control, and then all of a sudden the wheels fall right off, and the wheels cannot possibly fall off for everyone at the same time, yet this is what we're seeing. And the bottom of that lineup has really done nothing. Guys are getting cold and staying cold for an exorbitant amount of time, and it's really tough times in Queens, and to the likes that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, where do you go for answers, though? I mean, that's the problem you have if you're the New York Mets is where exactly do you go for the answers? I mean, the Met fan spent, and so did the Yankee fan, spent months with the moronic conversation about whether or not Juan Soto was happy or not in Queens. And the Mets were still winning baseball games, right? So, but people didn't want to focus on that. People wanted to focus on whether or not, he really wanted to be a New York Met after signing the $765 million deal. That was when they were winning. Now they're losing. You know, and you pointed out last night on Sports Station Nightly that, you know, Soto's not going out there hitting in clutch situations. He's doing a lot of his damage with nobody on base, right? And I understand he's resembled a lot more of the hitter that we have known Juan Soto to be on the major league level in the month of June. But where do you go now if you're David Stearns? As he met with the media yesterday, all smiles, we're a good team, all this stuff that you get from the president of baseball operations for the New York Mets. And listen, I don't think you expect him to go out there and throw his team under the bus, but where do you go from here? I mean, where do you go from here? You've sent Alvarez down, you've sent Acuna down. You know, Beatty, who's, you know, his claim to fame is a wonderful defensive player, had a play to make last night, didn't make it.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, he's not nearly the offensive player. We haven't still seen Vientos return from the IL. McNeil is a shell of the offensive player that he once was. Tyrone Taylor's a wonderful defensive player. He can't hit a lick. You've got Luis Torrens hitting under 230 as your everyday catcher. I mean, where exactly do you go here? There's no depth to this lineup. The lineup that you envisioned in the offseason after the acquisition of Soto and being one of the deepest in all of Major League Baseball, that is not what we're seeing on a day-in, day-out basis, to where if you're Spencer Strider last night, you know, you get yourself through basically Lindor, Nimmo, and Soto. You get through yourself through that three. You know, we've seen Alonso at times expand the strike zone more recently, and the rest of the lineup stinks.
Yeah. There's not an easy fix to this thing. This is something that we're looking at, and there's not a light at the end of the tunnel, because what you're seeing is you have the prospects up there that you want. The young guns. Just, you know, a year ago, we heard about the young guns. Vientos is on the mend. We understand that, and then with the caliber of hitter that he can be. Yeah, there's a lot of can be to this lineup. There's a lot of can be to anytime you have prospects and the younger players. It's about just getting the job done. It doesn't have to look pretty. I think that's one of the things that, you know, you appreciate a team that's hard-nosed, that goes out there, that grinds out at bats, that, you know, finds a way to be in every single ball game. And that's who the Mets were going into the, you know, that faithful Tampa Bay series, where all of a sudden they get swept at home for the first time, and you saw, you know, some vulnerability. You said, wait a minute, you know, is this team really as good as they have been? And, you know, you would like to say, yeah, you know, could they go on a 10-game losing streak? And then could they go on a 10-game winning streak? It's not that simple. It's not that simple. The wins don't usually come that way because of the way that you're going to face, you know, star pitchers. You're going to face aces of the staff. You're going to face those guys. Like in a matter of 3 days, they faced, it was, you know, Zach Wheeler, it was Chris Sale, it was Strider. You know, you had some really tough competition in the beginning. And if they're able to neutralize the Mets offense for most of the game, I mean, the one you see the 12 runs that they have with the 7 home runs. Yeah, great. You know, a parade like offense. But for the most part, it has not been that way. You've got guys in the bottom of that lineup. I mean, Mauricio 185, Beatty 217, Young, who's been the DH for the most part,
and got your leaguer. Let's be honest.
And they kept him up at the major leagues. He's batting 170. Terrence 218. Like those are
like how are you using Young as a DH?
I mean, you're reminiscent of what was the guy that stayed way too long as the DH behind. He came from Pittsburgh. My God, I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of that, right? Like Vogelback. Like what are the metrics that are keeping this guy in the big leagues? Because the 2 balls that he actually put in play were home runs with exit velocity of 107 plus.
Well,
like,
I mean, Vogelback was an analytiix guy, on base, all that kind of stuff, and I get it to a certain extent. It just didn't work. Young, I just don't see what you exactly witness in him and look at him as there's
nothing left.
Too easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it's just too easy. We talked about this Met team being like teeming with young talent. You know, Alvarez and Acuna were sent down. You know, Met fans want to look at it. Some of them on social media coming after me thinking that it's options with Francisco Alvarez. I mean, I guess you want to look at it like or you could just look at the effort and the performance and the laziness behind home plate and say that's the reason why Francisco Alvarez is sent down. But these are real tangible issues that are not going to go away easily. Because here's the deal, like you get Vientos back. What version of Marc Vientos is it going to be? Like, is it the Marc Vientos we've seen this year? Because that Marc Vientos is nowhere close to the hitter that he was a year ago when Marc Vientos looked like a burgeoning star, an offensive star in Major League Baseball. That's the Vientos that the Mets thought they were having this year. That guy, even before he got hurt, Figgy, was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think one of the things we talked about when you talk about this lineup and the depth, and we saw it all on paper, and you were like, man, if your 7-hole hitter is a guy who can give you 24, 25 home runs, and you have all these guys that can give you 20 to 25 plus home runs, what a lineup, right? And then you were comparing them. Oh, these guys can contend with anybody. And the one that was really waving that flag around was a gentleman who's in minor leagues right now by the name of Francisco Alvarez, right? Said he believed is the best lineup in all of baseball. And now when you look at it, you're hit with the reality of performance. It's based on performance. It's not based on the possibility of what you can do. I don't care how the job gets done. I don't care if it's a bloop single to right. I don't care what it is, but strikeouts in big situations, trying to do too much. You're not hitting a 5-run home run. I mean, there's so many cliches that go with this that you would expect these guys to not fall victim to. And I'm just very surprised of the ineptitude of the lineup in general. And these guys at the top of the lineup, listen, they're having their moments as well. I mean, we saw Brandon Nimmo batting, 220 in the first 2 months of the season. We saw Francisco Lindor take a while to get going. And since the toe injury really hasn't been the same Francisco Lindor, Soto has heated up, but again, it's singles and meaningless hits when it doesn't count or doesn't matter, I should say. But, for the most part, Pete has cooled off. And when it came to Marc Vientos, the huge key with Marc Vientos, it was without a doubt whenever if you weren't game planning for him in the lineup, right? He was just Marc Vientos, a rookie. You knew you just had to try and avoid him doing damage with runners on. And he was able to take advantage of that. A lot of fastballs he saw. And he got fastballs to hit and did a tremendous job with that. When it came to breaking balls and, exactly how he was hitting breaking balls, he was terrible against breaking balls. And the rest of baseball took advantage of knowing that. This year they came in with a game plan. And over and over, he saw more breaking balls.
Yeah, no, listen. And then you get to the bullpen where, Brazoban, I think his ERA is like north of like 8 in his last like 9 appearances. Garrett's been leaky.
Yeah.
You're not getting much length with the starting rotation. You thought it was going to be a Montas conversation. He was good last night. Bullpen, not so much. The Mets had 2 hits going into the bottom of the 8th inning last night. I mean, that's not going to be good enough against the Atlanta Braves, and it wasn't. Now they get Fuentes is starting tonight for the Atlanta Braves, and you get Clay Holmes for the New York Mets. Mets going to have to score some runs. I mean, there's no doubt about it because we do know this. The other aspect of it, it's going to be another hot, steamy night. Holmes has a tendency to go out there and miss the strike zone and walk guys if he's not on. So if that's the case, then the Mets need to get that offense going, and they should be able to get into a guy that's got a 7.2 ERA starting tonight for the Atlanta Braves. That's the Mets side. We'll get into the Yankees. We'll do that next. It's Figgie and the Moose right here on this Wednesday on Pix 11 Plus. Figgie and the Moose with you right here on this Wednesday on Pix 11 Plus. Make sure to check out Sports Nation Nightly each and every night, 7 p.m. We're off this Friday for a NASCAR race, Xfinity Series race. But outside of that, we're on Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. sharp Eastern time. Figgie, as far as the Yankees go, I mean, they're the worst team in Major League Baseball in extra innings on the road. That proved to be the case once again last night. Refusal to play a little bit of small ball. Judge had an opportunity with the bases loaded, popped out meekly to the infield on a pitch that he never should have swung at. I mean, the Yankees went from like the 5th inning to like the 10th inning or 11th with like 1 hit. The Cincinnati Reds. I mean, it was they did nothing offensively. And, I've said it before, the Volpe stuff is concerning. Chisholm getting run out of the game. You've got J.C. Escara going out there playing third base. Offensively, you've seen, Bellinger cool off, Goldschmidt cool off. You've seen Judge cool off. It's not a particularly dynamic offensive team, even though people want to claim the fame that it is. Rodon was good last night. I mean, he went out there, did his job, 88 pitches. I heard Boone after the game talk about the fact that he was gassed. Yeah, it was 100 degrees in Cincinnati last night. Like, he did his job. And then you bring in a guy like Jonathan Loaisiga, who the day before was sick. He gets touched up. then has issues dealing with the heat and catching his breath. You know, he gives up the bases clearing double that ends up, you know, tying the game.
Tying the game.
And the Yankees end up losing the game in extra innings. I mean, you know, just as we talk about the Mets issues, the Yankee issues are concerning as well. When you look at the bullpen at times, when you look at this lineup not being dynamic the way that you expected it to be coming into the year, even with the loss of Juan Soto, and you get a quality start last night against a Reds team that, you know, it's got a good manager in Terry Francona. Ellie De La Cruz is a wonderful young player and a burgeoning star in Major League Baseball. Outstanding young player, but that is a tough loss when you have a 3-0 lead on the road and your starter does his job and the bullpen can't hold it.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like what we just talked about with the Mets, right? Up and down, almost exact identical things. To see how that game started for Cincinnati. You know, they had a kid making his debut, Burns. He went out there, struck out the first 6 out of 7 batters he faced. It looked electric. Just had averaging about 99 miles an hour in his fastball. So the Reds have some promise when you have a guy like Hunter Green and also this kid who just made his debut against the Yankees. And still with that, the Yankees had a 3-0 lead. Timely hitting, Volpe hits that triple. Those are the kinds of things that, you know, you like to see from the Yankees. And then the bullpen blows that lead. And then it's just a matter of time with the ghost runner. You know that it's designed for the home team to win. It just is, right? You have to go for not necessarily going for 1. You have to go for 2 runs, and you know, you don't see the small ball era of bunt the guy over and try to get him in from third with 1 out. You know, they're trying to score multiple runs in that situation. So at the end of the day, a lackluster performance leaves you again with more question marks about what we're seeing and what is true and what is real. You said that a word, that the dynamic Yankee lineup with the athletes that we thought that they had, right? With a Volpe who could steal you 30 bags. You got Jazz Chisholm who could steal you 25 bases. You got Bellinger who was a guy that could steal bases and I still believe can. You got Paul Goldschmidt leading off. Like I get it. It's fun to play with, and they've been doing that all year long with that leadoff position because it's who you trust, right? Paul Goldschmidt has been a guy who's batted over 300 all year. So who do you trust to get that started and at least be on there so that when Judge hits a home run, it's not just a solo shot, right? So I think that's the strategy behind that. But it's just, if he's up at the top, then there's nobody behind Judge, nobody to help pick up the slack after Judge. And, you know, last night was another example that Judge wasn't able to come through in the clutch with bases loaded, got jammed in that last at bat and was out. And, you know, you kind of crumble that one up and see if you can strike first again, at least play from the lead. Like for the Mets, it's been a while since they had the lead in a game and then they threw it away. So I think it was like more shock value than anything that they had a lead. Actually, they've been playing from behind for so long because the starting pitchers have been giving up runs early in games. Yeah. For the Yankees, it was again, it was an opportunity for them to do something. And was it the best usage when you know guys are struggling?
Yeah, they both stink right now. I mean, it's in essence, I mean, it's tough baseball to watch. Can't get out of their own way. It's a long MLB regular season. You get it.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams have got issues that need to be resolved by their MLB front offices. That you know, Mets need some bats. I mean, they just do. You know, they need some bats. They need some offense. You know, the Mania news yesterday, loose body. You know, getting a cortisone shot, not exactly confidence inspiring. I know he's being shut down for 2 to 3 days and beginning his rehab, ramping up his rehab assignment once again. Montas was good last night against Atlanta, but the Mets need bats in that lineup, and the Yankees need kind of a kick in the rear end. Judge covered up for a lot of warts on this team, did it singularly, but he has not had a lot of big moments this year either when you look at Aaron Judge. So that's the baseball side of things, kind of depressing. It's still a steamy, hot Wednesday here in New York City. As far as a little basketball is concerned, congratulations to Alex Rodriguez and his ownership group. They're going to be buying the Lynx and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that'll be announced during the Summer League, I believe, out in Vegas. They'll have the official press conference in August after the NBA draft gets going. So that's interesting when you look at that aspect. And tonight you got the draft and a lot of wheelings and dealings. Not much with the Knicks. They're still in search for their head coach. But the Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets have 5 first-round draft choices tonight. You know, 1 in the top 10, They were part of the Kristaps Porzingis 3-team deal where Porzingis ends up with the Atlanta Hawks last night. They get the, I believe, the 22nd overall selection to add to their treasure trove. You would imagine that they're not going to be drafting 5 guys. So I would imagine the Brooklyn Nets are going to try and move up, target some players that they're really looking to try and add to this group, add to this team. And we'll see exactly what Brooklyn can do. But they got a lot of money to spend and a lot of assets here moving forward. But it's really the Cooper Flag draft and see what kind of impact he has for the Dallas Mavericks, then Dylan Harper, and then we'll see where Ace Bailey ends up, Con Knipple, you know, all the young players that we've heard throughout the course of this NBA draft process. But tonight's a big night for young men that, you know, really uber talented, great athletes, Figgy, but dedicated their lives to a particular sport and gifted enough to be able to have their name called, whether it be tonight or tomorrow night during the second round.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I had a chance to sit down and interview Greg Oden today on the show, and being one of only 77 people on the planet to ever be drafted #1 overall, you know, he takes great pride in that. And for him, it was a matter of great expectations that were never able to be met because of injuries. And you know, he had the micro fracture knee surgery, which was very new. The treatment of that and how to proceed with that was such a talented center for Ohio State, and to see him never have a chance to live up to those expectations. And, you know, how do you move on from that, right? But he talked about how this is the moment you've been waiting for. I asked him, you know, what was your day like that day? Like, you went to bed the night before knowing the draft is tomorrow. When you wake up, it's like not like Christmas, because now there's anticipation and waiting. He's like, well, you know, I didn't know exactly where I was going to go. Never know if there was going to be a trade at the last minute. You never know what's going to happen. So even though Portland had the pick, there was always some trepidation of where am I going to be? It's going to be somewhere I've never been before. You know, I went from, you know, living in my home to going to Ohio State. Those are the 2 places I ever lived. So I didn't really know much more outside of that. But, you know, my life was about to change and my family's life was about to change forever. And so looking forward and kind of turning the page forward from some of these kids who are like a Dylan Harper, who his dad was in the NBA, right? And so he's already known what that lifestyle is like. It's a little bit different for every single player, even though, you know, and now that skill set will be tested, because if you think it's tough at the collegiate level, it's even tougher at the NBA level, not just to make it and get drafted, because there's only 2 rounds to the draft. That's it. There's 2 rounds. So you get drafted and you think, okay, well, I'm going to be a part of this team's future. And there's a whole G League filled with those guys that have had promise and not able to capitalize on it, or don't have the proper situation. And especially like those teams up at the top. Yeah, they go up at the top of the draft because they struggled the year before. They lost, or for some reason the Mavericks were very, very lucky with the 1.9% to get the first pick overall, and they did. But besides that, it's teams that haven't been doing well. There's teams that are, you know, in a rebuild. And so there's a lot that goes into it that first year, because you're under immense pressure as a first pick overall for your team and what the expectations are in that first rookie year. So it's exciting times, but again, the pressure bumps up immensely. It's not, I finally made it and I can rest back on my laurels. Like, look what I did in high school or look what I did in college. Now you got to show and prove against the best of the best.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun tonight. We'll have all the coverage right here on Pix 11. Make sure to check us out on social and make sure to check us out on linear as well. That's the insider term for over-the-air television. So that'll do it for this edition of Figgie and the Moose. Hopefully a better Wednesday night for both locals. Mets and Braves continuing their series in Queens. Yankees continuing their series out in Cincinnati against the Reds. For Nelson Figueroa, I'm Marc Malusis. This has been Figgie and the Moose. Have yourself a wonderful Wednesday. Stay cool, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
No doubt.